The news broke the other day that we're supposed to be getting a new Robocop and a new Terminator video game next year on dates that have yet to be revealed. Turns out that the Robocop game is called Robocop Rogue City, and that's basically a first-person shooter, while the new Terminator game is supposed to be a survival project game. And trailers for both games had surfaced on July 7th, and the atmospheres for both games looked very dark, and the visuals looked really impressive. And the thing is, even though like both RoboCop and Terminator are getting new games next year, both characters are not nearly as popular as they once were back in the 80s and back in the 90s and what have you. And this mainly has to do with the fact that society has changed, and nowadays people are more into anti-heroes and villains and characters they can relate to that are more realistic, opposed to, I guess, fictional superhero characters that are supposed to be cool or what have you. And the thing is, when you talk about like movies and stuff like that, it seemed like both RoboCop and Terminator had peaked like in terms of popularity back in like the 80s and the 90s and what have you. Like with Terminator, there's been like at least 6 big like Terminator movies that has been released since 1984, and I think the most popular one was Terminator 2 Judgment Day, and I believe that was the game that had an arcade release back in the early 90s. It may have been the same year that it came out, but a lot of people liked Terminator 2 Judgment Day from 91, and they think that the original Terminator movie from 84 was arguably the best. And you look at the 2000s and even the teens decade, it seems like the Terminator series, even though, you know, there's still movies and all that, they're not quite as popular as the first 2 Terminator movies. And you look at RoboCop. RoboCop basically got started back in 1987, and I believe the last RoboCop movie came out back in 2014, and the thing is, a lot of people know that, or they didn't know that there was a RoboCop movie that came out in 2014, because a lot of people didn't care, and at that time period, no one really was really into that type of stuff during that time period. And honestly, as far as like, you know, society declining and people being discontent, especially in America, is concerned, I honestly feel like it started around the time the RoboCop movie from 2014 was released. Now, I'm not saying that it's because of RoboCop that, you know, people are, you know, the way that they are. It's just that times have changed, things have changed. You know, people have different preferences in terms of video games, and it seemed like, you know, RPGs and first-person shooters and, you know, all kinds of rated M titles are something that I guess the general audience prefer in this day and age. And I do feel that just like the demand for certain type of video games in this day and age might have a detrimental effect on both the upcoming RoboCop and Terminator games. And, you know, the atmosphere for both games, you know, RoboCop and the Terminator games that's supposed to be coming out in 2013, they both have dark atmospheres, and the action looks pretty cool. Like the RoboCop game looked like it looks like interesting in terms of like what I saw in the trailer, and I believe that's the game that's a first person shooter, and if that's the case, it looks somewhat similar to like something you would see in like Call of Duty in terms of like gameplay and all that stuff. And I feel like the trailers look like they have like compelling like storytelling. You know, that's just based off what I know, but I believe both games are still early in development, and you know, they still have yet to confirm an official release date for both games. I believe this game's supposed to be published by a French video game company called Nacon, both games, and they're supposed to be released on multiple game systems, including the PS5, the Xbox Series X, and, you know, PC. And I do feel that both video games will definitely turn heads within the gaming world when they both come out. I'm not necessarily sure if those two games are going to break any records in terms of sales following their upcoming releases or what have you, but I feel that the trailers that emerged a couple of days ago is enough to get people talking about the upcoming releases, despite the fact that both Robocop and Terminator are, past their prime in terms of popularity in the eyes of many people.